With Invincible Season 4 announced, I want to go ahead and review the comics. How close do the comics actually line up? So I'm going to start off with Collection 2. Now, Collection 2 starts off right after Mark gets done fighting Omni-Man, and then it actually ends with the explosion of Angstrom Levy's machine, which is interesting because in the show, Season 2, we see Angstrom's machine actually explodes on episode 1. So this complete collection, the timeline's kind of thrown off. That's the main difference between the show and the comics, is that the timeline on how they pulled stuff is a little all over the place. For example, the fight with Battle Beast, that actually happens in Collection 2, but it happens after Omni-Man's already left Earth. So the reasoning they may have had for showing Omni-Man just watching the fight happen may have just been character development, him trying to train Mark. But in the book, he doesn't even watch. He's not even there. Also in the book, the college attack, where you see Amber kind of break up with Mark because he runs away, that happens whenever Mark visits the college. But in the book, it actually happens whenever Mark is going to the university. So he has a class and Amber just happens to visit, and then he doesn't protect her. He does his thing, right? I would like to point out that in the book, Amber still sucks. She's still the most awful character and makes everything about herself. But it's not as bad because she doesn't get as much screen time in the comics as she does in the show. We also get a little bit of book time with Alan the alien. Now, in this, he's pretty much the same character. There's not any other changes. We do see when he comes back and reports on Earth that they talk about a race called the Kresh. Now, the Kresh are one of the conquered worlds that the Viltrumites conquered. And the Kresh are going out and doing takeovers for the Viltrumites. So you see kind of this alliance between some of their conquered planets and them, which is another indication that the Viltrum Empire is getting weaker if they're needing to use lesser species and races to complete their plan, which was the main thing they point out. Then we see the whole trope where Alan gets his ass beat, essentially, and gets put in the hospital. In this, the only difference is that the female Viltrumite that you see, she is not present. It's all just men Viltrumites. Which, fast forward to Collection 3, that's another thing I noticed, but I'll get to that later. Another difference that doesn't feel like a big difference, but is for personality's sake, is in the comics, William dates Eve. So while Mark is dating Amber, William is dating Eve. So William is not gay in the comics, and Rick is just their friend that they met. So it's not someone that William's dating or attached to. Rick does go missing, and it is because of Sinclair, but he's not gone for like a day and then Invincible finds him. He's actually gone for like months, like 3 to 4 months is where it's mentioned, and then that's it. They never bring Rick back up again. They just mention, hey, he's been gone for a while, and that's essentially it. He's not an important character. He's not someone they're attached to. He's literally just a friend. The comics are a little, I want to say homophobic, but they definitely like push fun at that. It's like locker room banter where Mark will come back and then like he literally makes a comment saying, oh, William, like, are you gay for me or something? Like, do you miss me that much? Which, again, is part of its time, but that was interesting to me because they make several jokes about being gay, and then the show creators decided to take it the angle where William just is gay. For the most part, the comic pretty much sticks to how they did the show, which I think is cool. There's a few one-off villains that Mark fights extra in the comics, but they're not anyone that would have really benefited the show. It's just characters you're probably never going to see again. And then the personalities all line up fairly well. Again, William is the only personality that does not line up, just because in the show they make him very feminine and flamboyant. And then in the comics, he comes across as very like douchey and masculine, almost like a frat guy, kind of like a womanizer type. And again, he's just with Eve most of it until she breaks up with him. And that is essentially the only difference in the characters. Amber, again, she makes everything about herself. Nothing new there. Mark's mom, also in the book, she's the main other difference. She's just a stay-at-home mom. She doesn't actually take real estate classes until the end of collection 2. And then at that point, just something to do. Cecil actually has been paying Mark in the comics, which I think is a very different thing than the show, because in the show, they talk about how like Mark has to get a job and like him and Eve have to create this whole like thing for the prison. Well, in the comics, Cecil's just paying him a boatload of money and paying Debbie a boatload of money. But Debbie just sinks into alcoholism, which they show a lot. And I think they probably took that out of the show because they were probably targeting a little bit of a younger audience and they didn't want those extreme things in the show like alcoholism. I don't think it adds to Debbie's character. I think the show did it better and makes her seem more caring. Whereas in the comics, she's very depressed from Nolan and kind of just sinks into being a drunk. Season 2 of the show is just going to have a mix of, like I said, collection 2 and 3. So they're not exactly with the collections. It's a different range they're going off of. But other than that, I think the comics are way better. The characters are way better, obviously. And I will continue reviewing all of the collections on here just so you guys can see the differences. I'm excited because I have up to collection 5. So soon I'll be on the new source material for the new season. I should be able to start talking about that.